during the last weekend of June, one of the largest enforcement operations to occur in the state under Trump. And now people are organizing, canvassing this weekend, knocking on doors, and distributing Know Your Rights pamphlets so families know what to do if immigration agents come calling. Joining me now is Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. Lieutenant Governor, this newest immigration crackdown comes as the Supreme Court has cleared the way for this administration to end temporary protected status for roughly 350,000 Haitians, 6,000 Syrians, and maybe even other groups. Homeland Security officials have said these are targeted operations aimed at migrants with criminal records. How does it compare to what we've seen up to now?
Well, I can tell you, even before the Supreme Court sided with Donald Trump, we saw the lawlessness that has become ICE under Donald Trump. This is an agency that serves at his discretion. This is a rogue agency that has run afoul of the law in so many instances. And we have seen American citizens detained. We've seen Americans lose their lives. And we can all agree that if a person is in this country and they've committed a crime and they're not here illegally, of course, that person should be deported. But that is not, and we're talking about dangerous, violent crime, and that is not what we're experiencing right now. We're experiencing Donald Trump in the run-up to a midterm election where he is almost assured defeat, tried to use his heavy hand once again to be some sort of strongman leader, and it is ultimately making our communities less safe. It is creating unknown amounts of chaos, and we have agents that are running afoul of the law. There's a mask ordinance in Milwaukee that says that ICE agents cannot wear masks. They are defying the law. And I can tell you, if I become governor of the state of Wisconsin, ICE agents will be fined, they will be prosecuted and arrested if they run afoul of the law, whether it's state or local.
Now, I mentioned before that communities across Wisconsin are mobilizing to educate people on their rights and stand up against ICE. Earlier this week, Milwaukee residents gathered in solidarity with immigrant families and called out behavior that they described as masked agents following people through town, smashing car windows, and violently arresting their targets, sometimes in front of young children. What response from federal agents is this garnering? Is there a worry that the situation could escalate?
Well, it is ICE that's escalating the situation, and we've seen them do this before, countless times before, whether it was in Chicago or whether it was in Minneapolis. These are the tactics that they have employed because they have limited to no accountability. Now, we saw previously with the Department of Homeland Security under Kristi Noem, who was wholly unprepared for the position, now passed down that role to somebody else who is going to be absolutely worse. And we are seeing the worst of immigration enforcement. Now, the problem is Congress has failed time and time again. There have been Republicans and there have been Democrats in office who have kicked the can down the road when we should have had comprehensive immigration reform that would have created a just and a humane immigration enforcement mechanism. Now what we're left with is Donald Trump's ICE, which is making things absolutely worse. Communities shouldn't be living in fear. And we've had instances before where people who went to work hard every day, played by the rules, did everything they were told to do, still bear the brunt of this ICE response. And it is completely unacceptable. The president, one, will be held accountable this November, but we don't have until this November to wait. And I applaud the people who are going door to door all across the community, who are showing up, making sure that people know their rights, making sure that people and communities can be safe and communities and families can be kept together.
Now, you mentioned the ordinance that bans all law enforcement officials from wearing masks in public when on duty, where their name and agencies on their uniform and requires a car to be labeled with the exception of undercover assignments. Now, ICE agents appear to be ignoring the ordinances and have been seen wearing masks as they arrest residents and refusing to identify themselves when doing so. On top of that, Milwaukee's county supervisor has accused ICE of using a parking lot as a base of operations and saying they plan to sue the agency for allegedly ignoring the ordinance. ICE officials say they do not intend to comply with the state's rules. What can be done about that?
Well, I can tell you they don't intend to comply because they've never intended to comply. They have always written their own rules, and they have had a president in Donald Trump who was willing to back them every step of the way in their lawlessness. And I can tell you, responsible law enforcement doesn't go into communities with a mask on, doesn't hide their identity. They build relationships and trust in communities, and they do the work that would ultimately help to continue that level of trust. ICE is not concerned with that. And that is my biggest problem with this agency. That is my biggest problem with the Department of Homeland Security as a whole, because they have created a set of standards. They've created a set of rules that only applies to them. And the only person to enforce any sort of accountability on ICE is the president, and the president has no desire to do so. This is the same president that unleashed his minions on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. And ICE is giving him an opportunity to do the same thing in communities all across this country, operating with agents who run afoul of state and local laws, which is unacceptable. They need to be prosecuted. They need to be held accountable. And we need leaders in office who are going to make sure that it happens.
Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, thank you for being with us. Coming up, the best of